Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that has captivated human imagination for literally thousands of years. We are mapping out the hidden world, specifically the complex, overlapping hierarchies of demons, jinn, and unseen forces exactly as they're recorded across historical, religious, and esoteric texts. If you've ever wondered how the supernatural world was actually organized in the minds of ancient scholars and mystics, you're in the exact right place. Let's get right into it.
Listen to this. Come, see. In these evil species are 3 degrees, one above the other. The lowest degree of them are these, which laugh at people and trouble them in their dreams. That is from the Zohar, a foundational work in Jewish mysticism. It's a dramatic command, right? But it immediately establishes that we aren't just dealing with a chaotic mob of spirits here. They exist in degrees. They have ranks, scaling all the way from these low-level dream troublers up to forces of immense esoteric power. It sets the perfect atmospheric baseline for what we're about to map out.
So here is our roadmap for today. We're going to define the hidden world, climb through the degrees of the Shayateen, meet the Jinn kings and viziers, explore Kabbalistic demonic orders, and finally, look at the chiefs of the grimoires.
All right, Part 1, Defining the Hidden World and Uncovering the Roots of the Unseen. You know, the literal linguistic anchor of the word jinn is absolutely fascinating. It comes from the Arabic root jana, which basically means to cover, conceal, or hide from view. The historical texts describe it as being much like how the darkness of the night completely covers a landscape, or even how a fetus is concealed in the womb. So right off the bat, the word isn't really defining what these entities are made of, but rather their relationship to us. They are fundamentally hidden from human perception.
Now, inside that concealed world, things get complicated. You've got factions. The classical Islamic scholar Ibn Kathir gives this really stark theological warning. He notes that the Shayateen, the devils, are plain enemies. So the texts are actually drawing a hard line here, differentiating your standard everyday unseen entities from the Shayateen. The Shayateen are characterized by this intense wickedness that is totally dissimilar to their original kind, and they actively oppose divine messengers.
Moving on to Section 2. The degrees of the Shayateen, specifically looking at the 5 categories from Abu Omar ibn Abd al-Barr.
Okay, so Abu Umar ibn Abd al-Barr brilliantly breaks this down into 5 escalating degrees. First, you just have the general term, jinni. But if they happen to live in houses alongside humans, they get a specific title, Amir, or dweller. If they interact specifically with children, they're arwah, or spirits. But if that entity turns wicked, that's when it earns the title of shaitan. And at the very top, the absolute worst of the worst, a demon even more intense than a shaitan, that's classified as a marid. It's a literal ladder of escalation.
Section 3. Jinn Kings and Viziers. Welcome to the royal court of the unseen.
You might not expect this, but the unseen world has an incredibly rigid taxonomy. We're not talking about vague, wandering spirits here. We're talking about specific kings and their mighty viziers. And get this, they are mapped to precise days of the week. Yeah, even ancient supernatural forces had strict weekly schedules. Sunday is run by King Madhab and his vizier Damriyat. Tuesday, that's King Al-Amar with Vizier Shugal. By Saturday, King Maymun takes over with Vizier Sanaik. It is a full-blown supernatural bureaucracy.
And just to make this hierarchy feel a bit more real, the Grimoire Red Magic drops this wild detail. Those 4 great viziers we just looked at, Damriyat, Sanaik, Hadliak, and Shugal, weren't just, pushing supernatural pencils. They were supposedly put in charge of the mythical carpet sail. It's a fascinating detail because it gives them an administrative, almost physical job within the hidden realm.
All right, Section 4, Kabbalistic demonic orders, the Qliphoth, and the Hebrew underworld.
Let's put these 2 systems side by side for a second because it's super revealing. The Arabic and Islamic tier system we just explored, it mostly scales up based on wickedness and how much they interact with humans, going from a house spirit up to a marid. But the Kabbalistic system, it progresses based on divine opposition. It literally maps demonic orders and archdemons against heavenly spheres. So both traditions are building these incredibly complex, multi-layered hierarchies, but they are using totally different logic to categorize esoteric threats. When we walk through the specific Kabbalistic demonic orders, their English translations really paint a picture of the kind of chaos they govern. You've got Thamiel, the 2 contenders. They represent division. Then there's Golahab, the flaming ones, and Samiel, the false accusers. So they aren't just your generic run-of-the-mill monsters. Each order acts almost like a specialized government department of the underworld, tasked with a very specific flavor of spiritual disruption.
And right at the top of these departments sits a truly terrifying ruling class, mapped directly to esoteric domains. You've got archdemons like Asmodeus ruling over Golohab. Down at the bottom, there's Nehema, who the texts actually refer to as the Strangler of Children, governing the Nehemov order, which ties back to the domain of the elements. I mean, we're talking about an intricate, terrifyingly well-organized anti-heaven here.
Which brings us to Section 5, the Chiefs of the Grimoires, looking at European chains of command.
Now, the Grimorium Verum takes this to another level. Its hierarchy operates with this almost scary mathematical precision. Honestly, it reads like a modern corporate org chart or a strict military chain of command. At the very top, you've got 3 ultimate chiefs: Lucifer, Beelzebub, and Astaroth. Underneath them, each chief has exactly 2 deputies, and underneath them, each deputy has exactly 3 subordinates. So how does this play out for an individual entity? Let's take the spirit Surgicate as a test case. According to the texts, Surgicate acts as a direct subordinate. He doesn't just get to roam free doing whatever, he reports directly to his assigned deputy, Sargetanus. And Sargetanus? He answers straight to the chief, Astaroth. Every single entity is slotted perfectly into this massive, completely rigid organizational chart.
But before we wrap up, we really have to talk about balance. The esoteric philosopher Agrippa makes this exact point. He noted that in the highest place are the creatures of sanctity. The thing to remember is that for every dark, demonic hierarchy these texts explore, they also outline an equally complex hierarchy of heavenly, holy counterparts. The darkness in these systems is always mirrored and ultimately kept in check by an overwhelming structure of light.
So, that brings us to the big question. From the Arabic categorizations of the Shayateen, over to the Hebrew Kabbalah, and right through the European grimoires, we see the exact same impulse. Why? Why has humanity felt this profound, universal need to strictly categorize, rank, and file the unseen forces of the world? Does this rigid mapping reveal actual hidden secrets of a supernatural reality? Or does it just reveal the human mind's desperate need for order, structure, and control when faced with a vast, terrifying unknown? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and hey, keep questioning the world, both seen and unseen.